Welcome to Women Empower Active, an initiative started by UR Sportswear to empower women to find their own active adventure. I'm your host, Jacqueline Gross. Today, we're going to be interviewing Aubrey Voelker. She is a trail runner and a hiker, and she's done some solo backpacking as well. We get into a lot of different things in this interview, and a lot of them have to do with pushing yourself past your comfort zone, but also knowing when you can just take your time and figure it out. I'm very excited to share this with you. I hope you enjoy this interview. I know that you kind of progressed from running and then you started to find love for the trail running aspect of running. So how did you get active? And then we'll kind of go into the trail running part.
My parents kind of got me into all different sports, softball, volleyball, even just enjoyed running around, hiking through the woods and whatnot, just playing outside. So I was always just very active as a child and just kind of continued that throughout my life. Definitely in college, I started to run a little more. I mean, very short runs, like 1 to 3 miles max, but, it's just a good way to release some stress, not to think about everything going on. And then once I moved out here to New Hampshire, where I currently live, it's when actually I first got into hiking a lot more, and I really fell in love with the mountains, really just enjoyed being out in nature, really pushing myself to conquer as many miles as I could. Did some running again. It's kind of just a few miles here and there. And then kind of once, the whole COVID pandemic hit, things really, there wasn't a whole lot to do besides really be outside. Is when I kind of introduced myself to trail running a little bit more, just as something different to try and, really enjoy it. Again, I'm not one of those like ultra, marathoner trail runners. I'm more the a few miles. I think mainly because I get very easily distracted by things in the woods. I end up just like stopping. Oh, what's that bird? What's that? Yeah. It's cool to have that different perspective, trail running versus hiking, all the different obstacles that come with it and different ways you can just push yourself too.
What's your job, by the way?
Yeah, so originally when I first moved to New Hampshire, I was working for a little nonprofit called Squam Lakes Natural Science Center. I was doing a lot of the animal care and like behavioral husbandry there. And I just started last week with a new job with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, coordinating one of their programs that really is aiming to reduce the amount of salt being put on the roads during winter. Chlorides that then go into our different water systems is not good for many reasons. When salt gets applied to different, roadways or parking lots, what's been pretty common is we completely oversalt the pavement. And the excess salt just kind of bounces off onto, the grass or different waterways, different systems. And that chloride from the salt then goes into our water systems, which is bad, can affect our drinking water, affects, all different wetlands and water systems in general. Good environmentally and can have very negative effects. And once the chloride's in the system, there's no way to get it out. It's in there for good. So we can, reduce it and maybe one day even completely eliminate doing that. Be better for everyone.
What are some things that they're like thinking about for solution? Because I grew up in Michigan. They use salt on the roads. Like if you buy a used car in Michigan, you're like, probably it's rotting from the, the underside. So
yeah.
You always want to be careful if you're buying a car from the Midwest. So like what?
Well, I grew up in Wisconsin, so I Yeah, right now the program aims to work with different like plow companies and like the NHDOT to work on different techniques that both reduce the amount of salt they're putting on the road while still obviously being effective for safety reasons. Actually, melt the ice. Yeah, they're doing like brines, which is pretty much just, like a salt and water solution, allows the salt to start working faster and allows for like the, salt particles to not just bounce off into the grass. The brine, they put it on before, like right before a storm comes. So it actually helps prevent ice from ever forming as well.
Okay. Are they talking about like sand at all? Because I know they do that in Washington a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, private areas and like just individuals who use sand too, because that provides traction, but doesn't fully melt the ice, what salt does. And so then when you start involving, safety, politics, insurance. That's why we're kind of sticking with just, okay, let's start with reducing salt.
You had talked about kind of being outdoors and kind of like getting people more involved in outdoor like activities.
Mhm.
Like, how are you like sharing that with others?
So I have lots of friends in Wisconsin, obviously.
Yeah.
Lots of them who've like, come out here and I've taken them up some small mountains and really gotten them into being outside and all the fun things that it offers. I've gotten a few friends to join me for sunrise hikes or helping give them that, experience that they've never had before. Because again, a lot of them, they don't have other people who want to go hike in the dark with them early in the morning and they're just not comfortable yet going by themselves. So it's really great to be able to take them and show them that it's, they can do it, they can accomplish that.
Mhm.
And some of them are like, I am not going that many miles. I'm like, fine, we'll do one that's half a mile.
Like there is a barrier between like just running on the roads and then getting into trails. Like New Hampshire is gorgeous and has amazing trails, but so I understand how you could get into that like once you see it. But it's also some people are just like, I am not going to run on trails. Like they're just, it's scary or like they're
Mhm.
worried about animals or like what kind of got you really into that and like feel confident and comfortable in the woods by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, before I got more into trail running, I was, still am very avid hiker, and I do a lot of solo hiking, which, then transferred into being able to do more solo trail running. But I think what really just got me confident about solo hiking was just kind of having to go out and do it. When I first moved to New Hampshire, I didn't really know anyone, and, I had off on weekdays instead of weekends, so a little more difficult to find people
Okay.
with. So it's just kind of like, if I want to hike, I'm just going to have to go by myself. And I think it was just forcing myself to go do it and going, oh, this is actually great. I can go my own speed. I can change my plans if I want to. I mean, definitely when I first moved to New Hampshire, I learned about it's called New Hampshire 48. It's like a list where you hike the 48 mountains in New Hampshire that are over 4,000 feet in elevation.
Cool.
That was just a really cool goal to have when I first moved here and completed about a couple of years. I can't even remember how long it took me, but that was a great way to get introduced to kind of the area. And oh my gosh, so many great trails on there. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
like what's even my favorite. Really, any of the trails in the White Mountains. They're beautiful, very steep, very
Mhm.
rocky.
Yeah.
Don't really have the dirt paths.
You started talking about how it's like not dirt path, it's like more rocky and
Yeah.
like managing that and then like knowing when the weather is not good. Like how would you know those types of things for like weather and like planning and saying, okay, this is not going to work for me.
Yeah, it's always kind of there's like the Mount Washington Observatory,
Mhm.
and it's placed on top of Mount Washington, which is the highest peak in New England. It's also what they call the home to the worst weather in America. Man has recorded the top wind speeds at the top of Mount Washington in the world,
Wow.
200 miles an hour. So they
That's
have
crazy.
really cool research going on there and have a really good weather observatory. So always looking up that, the night before I plan to go do something so you can at least get an idea of what the weather might be. Of course, it can always change in an hour. Yeah, and usually I'm looking at, wind speeds, is it gonna rain, hail, snow in July? Because that happens.
Crazy.
And usually if you do something like the presidential traverse, you're gonna be above tree line for most of it. So if the winds are horrible or if it's gonna be, cold and pouring rain, it's just not gonna be enjoyable. I'm definitely for pushing myself, but don't need to be that uncomfortable.
You don't have to prove anything to
No.
anybody. Yeah.
And also that's okay to turn around. I actually had that happen to me yesterday morning.
Yeah.
I went to a trailhead to hike up Cannon Mountain for sunrise,
Cool.
which is a trail I've done many times, especially in winter. With it being November, also known as shoulder season, the trails, kind of random ice everywhere. You don't really know what to expect. Got almost a mile up and I hit a giant rock slab that was just like pure black ice.
Wow.
Like no way around it. I like stood at a spot for a solid 15, 20 minutes, just like trying to find a way around with like my little headlamp. And it just got to the point where I'm like, this isn't safe to go up. I'm not gonna be able to get back down this safely. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I just had to make that decision to turn around. It's definitely a trail I've hiked up many times before.
Yeah.
So it was just like in the conditions, and also with it being dark, it's harder to really see the good spots. That's just
Yeah. Yeah. And then coming down is way worse than trying to get up. Can you talk to like how trail running like helps with like clearing your mind and
Mhm.
like that? Like what do you do to get in that mindset, or like how do you let go?
One, you kind of just get away from technology. And I think especially if I go, on a trail run or a hike that's gonna push myself a little more, you just start being so focused on that. They tend to forget everything else that's going on. So just kind of focusing on that struggle or push, up the hill or the mountain. Just being able to completely focus your mind on something else that has nothing to do with work or whatever stress is going on just in your life is really helpful. And then also, especially if you're just struggling with something, whether it's your personal life, if it's at work, relationships, you go do, a really hard trail run or hike and you push yourself and like you accomplish it. It's like a really good feeling. That you like completed this goal, you feel better about yourself. And it allows you to go, hey, I can, I did this, I can go tackle whatever was bothering you back home. I've definitely gone through just weird phases where I just don't feel like going out and hiking or running. Whatever the reason, I mean, it might be something, yeah, going on at work or just get into a weird rut almost.
Mm-hmm.
I guess sometimes it's just kind of I have to just let it pass, maybe find something else to do, go motivate myself. Maybe it's, hey, I'll go for a bike ride that I haven't done in a long time. I'll just go sit by the lake or go for a swim. It's finding those ways to still get outside, but maybe just something different what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Change things up, kind of get me out of that weird space that I might be in mentally.
It's so interesting to me because like you have set these like own goals and like you've created kind of your own training plan, whether you would call it that or not. Like you're still like
Might be a stretch.
yeah. But you're still doing 30 miles and you're getting your body so that it could do 30
Right.
miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you are doing that training to get there, and you're doing it in a way that like fits your lifestyle. Any advice that you could give to other people who are trying to like fit that into their lives?
So there's definitely times where I don't have time to go, do a 15, 20 mile, whatever hike. Maybe it's time to go do a mile hike. And it's just, I feel like just going out and doing that, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just for 20 minutes, just I think getting yourself out there can sometimes be the biggest obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And push yourself to just go out, even for a short amount of time. It really helps. And don't, I guess, yeah, like I said, don't put so much pressure on yourself to, have to complete a goal. It's great to have goals and try to achieve them. It's also okay to not meet them. And then in the process, find what other things you accomplished instead. Or you might have to switch your goals based on whatever it is that's going on.
I was going to ask you this too when I heard you had a zoology degree, and like with you doing a bunch of hikes and going outside, do you feel like safer because you feel like you like know more? Because I feel like it's one of the things that limits people from going outside or doing like backpacking where they're spending the night. It's because like of animals. Like that's probably
Right.
the number one fear people would state, like, oh, I'm afraid of bears or whatever else.
I feel like, I do have a decent understanding of a lot of the wildlife, so I'm sure that helps. I mean, I think too, just kind of growing up, my family also, we did a lot of stuff in the woods, lots of, like just car camping, but like hiking and walking through the woods, that just having that experience probably also helped.
I will be honest, I'm still like nervous about backpacking by myself, like overnight. Not so much that, I mean, yes, the bears, but I just think that I would have to like know more about what to do, like in certain situations, which I would be
Right.
nervous about.
Yeah, well, it's definitely different. I mean, because I, went backpacking in Glacier National Park with a friend. And I feel like that's not a place I'd want to go alone, just because again, yeah, you have, grizzly bears, uh, more mountain lions, and
Oh yeah.
percentage. It's nicer to have a second person there because if you do encounter something, you can make more noise and seem more threatening. There's two of you.
Yeah, I remember somebody shared this video around of a runner and they are being pursued by mountain lion in Colorado. I don't know if
Oh, I think I remember seeing that
it went
one.
viral, so you might
Yeah.
have like this guy was like running away and the mountain lion just kept pursuing him and then like
Yep.
it would go back and he'd throw rocks at it and yell at it and it would kept pursuing him and then he would run away and he taped the whole thing, which I don't know how he
I don't know how.
yeah, I would have dropped my phone like way me back. Like
Yep.
I need my hands, I need both hands.
Hands, need these.
Yes, I am big, I am scary. But yeah, I mean that's the thing for me too. It's not so much like bears or moose. I am like deathly afraid of mountain lions. So
Right.
which for good reason. For good reason.
Yes,
I would say
that's
yeah.
a good reason.
Yeah. Partly why I'm scared is because like I don't know things. So once I like
Right.
learn things, that's a big part of like doing this whole interview anyways. Is like we want to kind of give people a good idea of like what they might encounter. So like on a normal hiking trip that you're going to do like an overnight, like what is your process? Like are you like how do you decide to set up camp? Like when do you decide to set up camp?
Usually I have, like, if I'm gonna go do an overnight by myself, I usually definitely have a destination in mind. So I usually have a destination so at least one person knows where I at least should be. Where I go, gosh, it really a lot of times it depends on my mood. I've definitely I have two different destinations in mind, and when I wake up, I'm going to decide and see which one I'm feeling. Sometimes it's I don't feel like doing a really long hike. I'm going to go to the spot that's only a 5 mile hike in. I really like, going to a spot, setting up camp, and then just kind of sitting there and relaxing. Or a lot of times I'll go camp at a spot that's by like a nice river or a lake or something. You can just sit and read a book and kind of take in the surroundings.
So you're like getting there relatively early. It's still light outside when you're putting up camp and like you're doing it not in like a stressful way, like, okay, I'm gonna find a spot because I'm tired or whatever else. You've like predetermined your spot. What do you do next?
Yeah, typically, I mean, again, probably depends on the length of the hike and difficulty of what exactly I'm going to bring to cook.
Yeah.
Equipment want to carry with me. But yeah, usually I like, since I have a bunch of time, bringing my jet boil or something and cooking some food and, in the morning making coffee and just really enjoying the experience and not really having that rush to get somewhere is also really nice and just relaxing. Yeah. And also, I mean, I love, bird watching and whatnot. So I always bring binoculars with me. It's nice to just be able to go set up camp and just kind of do whatever you feel like and not have to worry about being somewhere before dark, setting up camp before dark, and just feel like just would make me more anxious.
Yeah, I think you said one really good piece of information is that letting everybody know where you're going to be camping.
Yes.
Because I mean, even if it is 5 miles from the trailhead to where you're camping, like it's really important that somebody know where you are. Do you bring your dog with you?
I haven't yet. So we just adopted the dog we have about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
So we've been doing lots of small hikes with him, but gets very excited when he sees new people and gets very overwhelmed. We're working on, just kind of training him to calm down and relax. So that's been more of our focus on him. And hopefully next summer I'll get him out and try backpacking with him and see what happens. Obviously a much shorter hike. So in case it's not working, can easily pack up and turn around.
Yeah. You say like, to me, bravery is being willing to step out of your comfort zone and doing something that it doesn't mean that it's doing the most dangerous thing, but doing something that for your personality may be scary, but completing it will help you grow. Were you speaking to anything like particular for yourself in that when you said that?
I think what I was kind of reflecting on for me personally was because when I moved to New Hampshire about 5.5 years ago, didn't really know anyone. So I think
Yeah.
that was a really big, just out of my comfort zone. Like, I'm just gonna go move to the States and live there.
Yeah.
And, trying to make friends when you're an adult is actually really hard. And
Oh yeah. Heck yeah, it is.
and yeah, again, learning just to be really comfortable with solo hiking was also a really big leap for me. So I think just kind of reflecting on that whole experience is where I was, coming from.
Yeah, no, it's so well said. Like I totally agree that like it's not just the scariest thing, it's just like overcoming it for yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that's huge. Do you find that like anything causing, because like anxiety isn't necessarily like fear based, but do you feel like it can be like you're scared or whatever, but
Right.
sometimes it's obviously just like stress that like comes
Mhm.
out in the way of fears. And do you find that any of this like hiking solo or like backpacking, does that make you feel more anxiety, or are you feeling like it's helped you with your anxiety, or how does that play, because those are stressful
Right.
situations?
I think it's definitely helped. I mean, obviously, first few times I did a solo hike, it's either in the dark or solo backpacking, you're just going to be a little anxious.
Mm-hmm.
But once I was able to go do that and accomplish that, it was like, oh, I can get past the anxiety if I, just go do it and complete the goal. I mean, granted, there's things, anxiety in life where it just takes time to get through and you just have to push through. But
Yep.
I think, it helps with that, just learning, you keep pushing through and you'll make it and it will be rewarding in the end.
Yeah, is there some particular like hike or situation where it's like you had to push through? I call that type 2 fun, where it's not fun during, but it's fun after.
Right? Oh, I know I've definitely had those. I'm trying to think of a specific. Oh, I remember one particular one. It was not like a difficult hike by any means, but I think it was maybe like 3 months after I moved to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely know it was a great decision and lots of wonderful things are happening, but there's also a lot of that pressure of, my friends aren't nearby,
Mhm.
just hard to make friends as an adult and having weird weekends and all that. And I was like, okay, I need to go hike, get over it. And I went up one of the mountains, South Kinsman, it was the mountain. And it's not that difficult of a hike. I think it's like 4 or 5 miles to the top. I can't remember exactly. But I've done much more difficult hikes.
Yeah.
So, it was one of those I just really struggled mentally. And I think it was just like kind of like that stress of everything going on and everything changing in my life, just for some reason got to me in that moment as I was
Yeah.
going up the mountain. And I remember I got to like this first little ledge there. And like it just like hit me and I just like started crying for no reason whatsoever. I like started bawling for like 5 minutes. And then I stopped and I felt so much better. I don't know. It's like I just need to like push through and get all of it off of me, everything that was building up. I
Hmm.
think it was also one of those, I starting to stress out about things, but at the same time, I was like, I shouldn't be stressing. Like things are going great. Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
I think just kind of like pushing myself and getting to the top of the mountain and crying it out for some
Yeah.
reason.
You kind of like let go of everything in that moment.
Yeah.
Did you feel like before that point like very anxious about like the trail and things like that?
I was kind of struggling, I guess like maybe a little bit physically. It was just more of an off day, but it was just like
Yeah.
to my head more so than usual.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think right, it was kind of that, I need to, why am I struggling with this? Like I shouldn't be struggling. And I think, yeah, it was just everything else going on in life that was really affecting it.
That's just a moment of being like, okay, you're here, you've made these choices. I mean, those are big choices. You've moved across or halfway across the country, and yeah, one half.
What happened?
And I mean, it's still far enough away from people to not see them very often anymore. And
Yeah.
like moving is very stressful. So it's just like everything kind of came together in that moment. Is there anything like, do you still feel because like I don't know how to ask this necessarily. There's like moments in which I'll be doing something that is scary, but that I'm normally not that afraid of the thing that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Do you find that like sometimes when you're doing these like backpack trips or like when you get on the trail and you're starting to feel more anxious about things than you or afraid than you normally would, what do you do in that situation to either get yourself through it or like
Mhm.
how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a good question. 'Cause I mean, I think a lot of us have had that feeling before where
Yeah.
you're anxious when you usually aren't. If I'm on a trail and struggling for whatever reason, sometimes I'll just like stop,
Hmm.
take a break, maybe take a longer break than I normally would. I allow that, time of stress to go, okay, why am I stressing out?
Yeah.
Is it, focus on, is it actually because I'm struggling on this trail or is it something else completely? And I think trying to like separate the two and really focus on what it is you're stressing out about or
Hmm.
being anxious about and really focusing on that can actually help get some clarity, I
Yeah.
guess.
Does accomplishing these things that you've pushed past, like, has it changed your perspective of like what you're capable of?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think anytime you accomplish whatever it is, it's, oh, I can, especially if it was something really difficult and maybe you weren't sure if you could accomplish to begin
Yeah.
with. Oh, absolutely. And they end up with like bigger goals.
I think we all kind of have those days where like you were saying, like we just don't think we can do things, and it's really hard as people who are competitive or have been competitive in the past to tell ourselves that it's wait, well, wait, or like you said, take a second and think about the fact that okay, I'm feeling the stress. I'm realizing that I'm feeling more anxious than I normally would. I liked your suggestion of just stopping and just like taking a second because like sometimes pushing through seems very impossible
Right.
to yourself. I'm thinking particularly if like I'm feeling very sketched out, like on a climb, some like I'm,
Yeah.
and it's just like seems very scary, and I normally wouldn't be this scared, but like
Mhm.
to try and take a second, realize that I'm not normally this scared, and it might not be that I'm scared. It might just be that I just am feeling anxiety. Why am I feeling like this? And kind of like going back through it in your head. I think that's a great suggestion of just like
Yeah.
take a second.
Take as long as you want or need.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And take as
Because
long
yeah,
as.
again, especially if you're on a climb that might be a little more dangerous,
Mhm.
if you're in the wrong headspace, that can make it more dangerous.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And like you had set that boundary for yourself earlier where you said, okay,
Mhm.
well, if I don't feel like doing this, then I don't do it. Like on a certain hike, I think it's really
Right.
important that we do set these boundaries for ourselves. And again, like it's really hard to do that
Oh yeah.
when you've created like okay, I want to do this hike and I have to be able to do this hike, but you should create that boundary. Well, okay, if I'm not feeling good or if my knee is starting to hurt or something is
Right.
ailing, or even if it's just a mental thing, to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to turn around right here instead of 5 miles
Exactly.
down the trail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have to learn to just be easy on ourselves sometimes. That it's okay if you don't reach a specific goal that you had in mind. It's definitely the days where, like, you start off on a run or a hike, or whatever, and have plans to do all these miles, and halfway through, you're just like, nope, this is not the day. You're just turning around and going home and, reading a book or something else that's enjoyable.
What words of empowerment would you give?
Just know, I mean, I feel like it's kind of cliche, like you can do whatever you put your mind to. I think we've all heard that, but it's true. Like if you really have a goal, you can do it, but also don't feel like you have to accomplish something in a certain amount of time that either you've set for yourself or society has set for you and expected. Like do it in your own terms, whatever it is in life, just do it because you want to do it and do it in a way that feels good for you. And it's going to be way more rewarding. Don't do it for anyone else. Do it for you.
Is there anything that like you really are passionate about or any like projects that you're working on that you'd like to give a shout out to? Any plugs?
Reduce the amount of salt on roads.
Yeah.
Protect. Don't pet wild animals.
Do you want to share your Instagram handle?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's just sunrise and wildlife. Lots of sunrise photos, lots of photos of my dog.
Cool. No, that's great. Yeah. So if anybody wants to follow
Yeah,
Aubrey,
absolutely.
you can go ahead and follow you there. You can follow UR Sportswear, that's the letter U, the letter R, Sportswear on all social platforms. You can take a look at any of our products at ursportswear.com. You can follow me personally at Jacqueline Gross, that's JACALYNGROSS. Thank you so much for listening.